The Metolius. This is the Metolius River. Or maybe not, I don't know. I've never been there. I do know that this is the Metolius fly, and it originated on that river by Steve Sobieniak, owner of the Root River Rod Company in Lanesboro, Minnesota. Let's tie one. The Metolius is tied on a size 14 dry fly hook. This is a Kona BDH. I start my 6/0 thread right at the 1/3 point to give myself a visual cue of where I want to put my wing. That wing is made out of either elk or deer hair. I'm going to use some elk. This is some natural cow elk. I've trimmed off about, a good clump, I would say, of elk hair. To get this ready to tie on, we always have to get rid of the short hairs and the under fur, so I'm doing that now. And then I will be putting it into my hair evener. Always put that in tips first. Get it all the way in there, and then you can whap that against your hands or the tabletop or whatever. Turn it to the left, pull the bottom off, and there are my beautifully aligned tips. That will be my post. First, I'm going to measure those. I want them to be about the length of the entire hook shank. Then I move them into position, tie those down right at that 1/3 point with several nice tight wraps of thread. Then while holding on to the butt ends, I'll bring my thread all the way back to the bend. Tying that in nice and tight, bring my thread back and stand up the tips. I'm going to throw a few thread wraps in front there to make a little dam of thread. Help that to stand up nice and straight. And then I'm going to wrap around the base several times, working my thread up about 1/8 of an inch or so to make a little base of thread. The hackle on the Metolius is any brown hackle. This is actually sized out to a size 12 hook, so it's a little oversized. I always get my hackle ready by trimming off some of the hackle fibers at the butt ends, leaving little nubbins for my thread to hold on to. I'm going to hold that hackle so that it is curved upwards, back side of the feather up, and I lay that right behind my post, tie that in with a few wraps of thread, and then marry that right to the post with a few more wraps of thread. And then I'm just going to cover up that butt end while I work my thread back. Here's from the opposite side of the fly. I've tied it onto the hook shank behind the post, and then I've wrapped up the post to marry that right to the post. The dubbing on this Metolius fly is any brown buggy dubbing. You can use hare's ear or squirrel fur. This is actually some brown squirrel mixed with some andron. And I would just want enough to cover up the back part of that hook right up to the back part of the post. And then I add a little bit of pink dubbing usually. You don't have to, but I like to, and Steve likes to. So I add a little bit of pink dubbing right around that post area. A little bit in front, a little behind. And good. Now I take my hackle down, and I always wrap my parachute hackle counterclockwise, starting at the top of those thread wraps, working my way down to the body. Usually try to get 5 wraps in. On that last wrap, I hold the feather straight on the far side of the hook, straight down, bring my thread up over the top of the hook, and then when I come back under the hook, I go behind that feather, so that's trapped it right to the hook shank. Get my thread out of the way so I can trim off the stem of that feather. And then I bring my thread back and just cover up any loose feather fibers sticking around. From the opposite direction, you can see this again. My first wrap goes counterclockwise right around the top of the thread wraps, and each wrap works its way down to the body. Last wrap, hold it straight down, bring my thread over and then behind that hackle stem, tying that right to the hook shank. Get my bobbin out of the way so I can trim out the fibers or the feather under there, and then bring my thread back. I see now that I have trapped a couple of loose feather fibers there in the front. I couldn't see that when I first made this video because I didn't have bifocals. I now have bifocals, so I can see that. I'll get that fixed on any future videos. The front half, or actually front third of that fly, is just some more brown dubbing. Do my whip finish there. Trim off the thread. And all we have left to do is to trim the butt ends of that elk hair to make a little wing or tail or whatever it is. I'm not entirely sure. Trim that off so that they're at an angle, like a little tent, such as a caddisfly would have. Get rid of those too long fibers there. And we'll put it back in the vise and trim out the long ones there. Our Metolius fly is complete, ready to fish. Check your fly.